So how long has making this garland been a tradition at Cotehele?
Well, this has been happening here for about 50 years, so relatively short time really in the grand scale of things. But traditions have got to start somewhere.
Have you got any special ideas for what's going to happen this year?
Well, the theme changes really from year to year because you don't know quite what plant's going to dominate, how the season's going to grow. So the colour theme is the main thing, and that really depends on the plant.
Honesty, which grows throughout the garden, will be used in the garland. But the majority of the 20,000 dried flowers are planted out in just 4 beds. So it's rather wet for planting, but you've got no option really, have you?
No, it's not ideal conditions, but like with so many things, you never seem to have enough time, so you've really got to try to get on.
Well, you have got a lot of plants to plant, haven't you? So your rows are about a trowel's width apart.
Yeah.
And we're planting them a trowel's width apart too, right down the row?
Yes, right the way down through, yeah.
I think, you know, if you've got a vegetable garden, because after all, you're not after an ornamental effect, are you? Growing them amongst your cabbages might be an ideal place.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'll bet when you come round this corner when these things are really going well, I bet it's absolutely wonderful, isn't it?
It really knocks your socks off and you just get a real blaze of colour.
So as well as providing all these flowers for your garland, they're also going to be giving you this fabulous show that all your visitors can enjoy. These beds are the hub of the whole operation. The final success of the garland depends entirely on what happens here. By June, the whole thing will be transformed into a sea of colour.
Well, Carol will see how that garland fared later on in the programme. Now you can see I've done a lot of planting and also a lot of placing out of plants. And the key thing when you're building an area like this without a plan is to allow yourself the time to put plants on the ground, move them around, live with them. There's no hurry to do this. It wouldn't matter if it took days or weeks or even months because they'll be perfectly okay in their pots. And then as you like groups, get them in the ground. And that's what I'm doing. Now, I've got here a dwarf Hinoki cypress. And it's very familiar conifer, but nonetheless fascinating for this sort of scalloped shape it has to the foliage. And also a really good, rich green. And of course, green comes in every possible shade, going from almost yellow to almost blue. And if you want a blue, this pine, Picea pungens, Edith, is probably the best blue there is. Now, if you read the label, it will say that it will grow, given the right conditions, which is full sun, to 50 feet. And you might think that that's far too big to fit in a scheme like this, but you can prune it. Any of these plants can be pruned. Don't be frightened of that, particularly if you get them in when they're small. And if you're planting as packed and as close together as this, you're going to have to prune at some stage. And another blue we've got, which is Picea costa, came from the plant swap at Gardeners World Live last June. And Adrian Roberts bought us that from Leeds. So it's found its way into the garden where it is highly treasured, really beautiful. Now, as far as the yellows go, this is a plant called Frankie Boy. It used to be known as Thuya, and you might well see it as Thuya Frankie Boy. And in fact, it's now known as Platycladus. And what's extraordinary about it are these cord-like stems and foliage. Really hardly leaves at all. And I'm planting a group here to light up this piece of the garden.
Well, it's the day before Christmas Eve, and I dare say more than a few of us will be dashing down to the garden centre tomorrow to pick up some last-minute Christmas presents. And what could be better than a house plant? But don't be panicked into buying the very first thing you see. Take a really, really good look. If you're buying a poinsettia, you're looking for a branching plant like this. It's really solid in its pot. And look at that. It's got absolutely masses of flowers. Now we call these the flowers, but of course it's a euphorbia. So the flowers are actually these tiny little things in the centre of these big red bracts. And these want to be tight shut. If they've gone brown or they're bright yellow, then the flowers are already open and the plant won't last you nearly as long. And avoid buying things which are right near the shop door, and definitely not on a garage forecourt. You can see what happens. Look at this one. It's been in a draft and the leaves are going quite crisp and brown. And when you've bought your plant and you've got a really, really nice one, make sure it stays nice. Put it back into its sleeve. These things will help actually retain the moisture in the pot, and they'll also make sure that all this top growth doesn't get drafty on the way home. Now, if cyclamen are your thing, you're still looking for the same sort of qualities. You want something that's short and compact, and although there should be a few flowers open so you can see what it's like, this is the bit you're interested in. Underneath, right inside the plant, you want lots and lots of buds in there, because with a bit of luck, you should have flowers from this for the next 2 or 3 months. So that's a beautiful plant. This, on the other hand, is really past its best. It's really wobbling around there. And there aren't many buds to come either. You really feel as though this is on the way out. If you're going to buy a plant like this, get it at a discount. Another traditional Christmas favourite is the Christmas cactus. As a nation, we buy about 3 million of them every single year. Mike Oppenham and his team in Spalding, Lincolnshire, produce over 90,000 of those plants.
The Christmas cactus is a succulent. The leaves are actually called phylloclades, and a phylloclade is a combination of stem and leaf together. It's an evolutionary adaptation to conserving water. We started growing Christmas cactus because research in England established that there simply wasn't anybody else growing Christmas cactus. And we thought it would be quite a challenge, to put it mildly. We actually received from Denmark 180,000 plugs. Each plug has 3 cuttings in it, and we put 2 plugs, one at 90 degrees to the other, in a finished pot. So the final finished Christmas cactus has 6 cuttings in it. The supermarket specification is for a bushy plant, and a 1-leaf cutting simply wouldn't give us a bushy plant. Because the Christmas cactus, or Schlumbergia as it's often known as, come from the tropics, the summer months are the months where the main active growth takes place. Forcing them into flower and producing them on programme is a completely different project. Well, this glasshouse was designed solely for Christmas cactus production. So what you see is 3 individual units, each capable of doing something completely different to the plant. Firstly, you have the blackout unit, and the concept of the blackout unit is actually to make summer become winter. Then you have what we call the supplementary lighting area, which is the area that we use to make the plants grow when winter is here. And the bit in the middle is what we call the photoperiodic section, and that's the bit where basically the plant has grown to the height and width and shape that we desire, and all we're trying to do is to hold it there so that we can prevent it from initiating flowers. It's the culmination of man versus nature, plant manipulation, really. It's quite satisfying, to be honest.
And this is the end result of all those endeavours. A really dense plant, absolutely dripping with flowers, and more importantly, loaded with buds. That'll keep going for ages and ages.
A fabulous display, isn't it?
Yeah, anybody think it was Christmas, wouldn't it?
But they're all quite traditional, you know, traditional Christmas plants. You see them every year. But you know, what particularly catches my eye is this. You know, you wouldn't see this normally in a Christmas display. It's Bromeliad guzmania, but these are becoming more popular, and I love them. I think they're going to be big in the future. It's
got all the right ingredients, hasn't it? All that red and green, and it looks festive, doesn't it?
It's like a little sort of mini Christmas tree in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got to be careful how to look after them as well, because you've got to water into the top there. Yeah.
Into the leaves.
Yeah, rather than the roots,
rosette.
because they're aerial roots, aren't they, really? Down at Covent Garden Market, they call these guzzies.
Guzzies.
Guzzies. Yeah, and I think they're great, really nice. And another plant, I think, you know, a slightly different take, but still going to be big at Christmas, is the chili. Because, again, it's got all the right ingredients, fabulous colours.
Yeah, wonderful sort of ivory and bright red and dense green, and it's terribly chic.
It is terribly chic as well, and it spices up your turkey a little bit too.
Now, I've been doing well. I've got a lot in the ground here in the conifer garden. I've got in the upright plants and also the larger ones, blocking out the spaces. I'm now going down a storey to get the ground covering plants because I don't want to see any soil at all. And a lot of conifers are ideal for this purpose Now, this is Juniper procumbens nana, and any plant with the name nana in it means low growing. It comes from south of Japan, and in fact is a favourite for bonsai, which is a pretty good clue to how we want to use it, which is to keep it dwarf, let it spread where we want it to go, but restrict it otherwise. And going from that extreme, we have sulphur spray, which, given a chance, wants to spread right out here and cover the area. But we'll prune it back. In fact, the Japanese reference is a good one, because I like to think of this area becoming a sort of bonsai forest. Now, there's one Christmas conifer that I haven't got in here that I need to deal with. I've resisted putting a Christmas tree into the conifer garden, mainly because the Norway spruce, in fact, grows into a giant. It'll be one of the biggest trees that will grow in this country, and it will very quickly swamp everything else. And also, because really, it will be a bit too obvious. Now, whilst it's getting a bit late in the day for buying a Christmas tree, most of us have got them, there's plenty of time in preserving it, keeping it looking really good from now through till 12th night, which of course is January the 6th. The main problem is that the needles tend to drop off. Now, they only do that in response to the warmth of your house. These trees are designed, evolved to cope with very cold weather. And we bring them into a house that is not only warm compared to outside, but extra warm because of Christmas and so many people there. So the first thing is keep it as cold as you can in your house. The next thing is to give it some water. If you cut a flower, you don't put it into a vase with no water. Have some sort of container that you can top up every day, and that will do an enormous amount to stop those needles falling. If it's got roots like this one, obviously it'll fare much better, but you still need to keep it watered. Put it in a pot, pack it with damp sand, and then keep topping it up with water. And we're going to see if we can keep that going till next year. Now, this isn't in such good nick, but I've seen worse, and I want to try and recycle this with our shredder. Now, it's a fairly small one, just powered by electricity, but if I cut it up, I should be able to turn that into a useful material. There you go.
What a lot of conifers.
Well, it is, but I think it's shaping up, don't you?
Definitely, definitely. There's hardly room for any more.
Well, I think I'd love to squeeze in this little full cypress, Karamachiba.
But where's it going to go?
Well, I don't know, I'm sort of playing with
isn't it going
ideas.
to grow huge?
No. This one here, which I popped in already, that's a mature one.
Right.
That's pretty much full size.
OK. So can I put one of these in there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
If I
another
dig a
one
hole, you can...
Oh, are you going to dig the hole for me?
Yeah, I'm a gentleman. And it's Christmas. Make the most of it. There we are. Thank goodness we prepared the soil.
Yeah. Earlier on in the programme, you saw me make my first visit to Cotehele Hall in Cornwall, where they make an enormous Christmas garland every year. It takes the whole year to do it. My first visit was in April, so when I went back, things had really moved on. What a transformation! It's incredible.
So different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fabulous. And is this the status that we planted?
Yes, yeah, three or so months ago, and it's come on well.
Yeah, they have. And are these just at the right stage? I presume they are, because the girls are cutting away.
These are at perfect stage now. This one, you can see, is all ready for picking.
Right. So it's at that stage when you can actually see these little white flowers and the bracts are really developed.
That's right.
And this status is just, it's everybody's favourite everlasting flower, isn't it?
Certainly, this is the one that the majority of people know and recognise.
Right. And how are the helichrysums doing?
Helichrysums are not doing quite so well. We've had rain for 2 or 3 weeks, pretty much every day. It's been warm but very wet, and they've got really bad mildew, or have had really bad mildew.
What a disaster.
So it was touch and go. We were almost at the point of having to rip them out. We were considering taking them out, so...
Oh, what, 50 years of Garland making
I
at
know.
Cotehele and no helichrysums? It's unthinkable, isn't it?
It is. But the sun came out and everything started to grow, which has sort of slowed up the fungal attack of the mildew. The actual bits that are still there are on the older growth, but we've been using a seaweed-based feed that's taken straight into the foliage, so it has an instant effect.
Yeah.
And you can see there that you've got 6 or 8 inches of fantastic growth now.
So you're going to be saved? You're going to
Fingers
have
crossed.
helichrysums?
While the sun's out and they're growing like this.
Yeah. So how do you cut them?
Basically, we're working to sort of a secateurs length.
Right, that's a
And
nice measurement, isn't
cutting
it?
down to the new shoots. and that'll continue to flower.
With a bit of luck, you'll get hundreds and thousands because you need them.
Yes,
don't
we
you?
do.
What else is ready, David?
There's the white Helioptrum, that sort of white tight flower when it's not in the full sun, pops open as the sun comes out. Those are several of those ready for picking. The Exochryzum, which is the sort of the yellow tight flower, very very spiky flower.
Oh, I remember that from the spring. That's lovely, isn't it? Like a big sort of much bolder helichrysum.